conversation. We are have more ideas than we have time for inevitably today, so we will be trying to stress through enough time with each question and each moment, but hopefully you all will continue these conversations after today. And lastly, I would just reiterate what everyone said around this being a listening session. So please feel free to come back to that list and ask each other questions, summarize what you're hearing, follow up on what you're hearing other people say as we have these conversations in the next 3 blocks. And yeah, just be a part of the facilitation team, since we're all here to try and protect the space together and pull out. Someone said quiet voices are the most to contribute. So let's make sure we don't miss quiet people as well. And hold the space for all of the emotions that might come out that are really, signaling how important these issues to everyone in the room and to Oregonians and state in general. So our first block is setting the scene. It's 2:10, so we might spend about 30 minutes on this, and then we'll take a break in about half an hour. But if you need a bio break earlier, feel free to dip in and out. So do you want to introduce it? Yeah, right. We're going to start with something a little wacky, which is called a fishbowl dialogue. Because there are so many people in the room, and because we want to center voices of the people who manage lands in Oregon, we're going to ask the people who do not own or manage working lands to literally pull their chairs back from the table to leave the landowners at the table first to start this conversation. If you wear multiple hats, if you are a hobby farmer or manage working lands as well as being a commissioner as well as your other role, please feel free to stay at the table to talk from the perspective of being a landowner. And our digital people, feel free to mute your camera if you don't consider yourself a landowner in any way, and just listen to this first half hour. We'll have plenty of time for people to all participate. Let's see, who does leave actually sitting at the table? Can we see those folks raise their hands? Who is actually sitting at the table? No pressure. There's a lot of people going to be listening. So the first questions are, first question is, what worries you most about the future? And I think, you all may be ready to respond to that. I'll just pick on someone to get the conversation started. So it really is a broad question. What worries you most about the future? That is not what we're talking about.
And I'll jump right in. Where I come from, it's a little different than some of the other places. I think energy development is driving this conversation in a lot of places, but in our part of Oregon, we don't have the infrastructure to ship out solar and wind, so that's not what's driving it. So the threats that I've been concerned about and what intersects with working land is the wildfire crisis, invasive annual grasses. Those are related, and I think in the Oregon high desert, that's a real threat. Where if you study that stuff, we're losing about 1 billion acres a year and 100 million acre landscape, and we're just learning how to address that, and there's issues with that, but we have to learn how to rehabilitate invasive annual grasses back into native rangelands if we're going to save the Oregon high desert and break this cycle. So working lands fits right in there. Fall grazing of livestock has been proven to move those systems back toward native ranges. There's challenges with that. There's people working on those challenges. I've got a virtual fence pilot project going on my ranch as we speak. we've got some new chemicals now. We've got to get agencies approved to use those. It's terribly frustrating. These agencies need to use chemicals on a level basis as the private landowners do to keep all the tools in the toolbox. I could go on and on. I want to pass the mic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll open that up. We'll probably spend about 10 minutes on each question and then I'll move us on to the next one. So any other others to speak to this question of what worries you the most about the future? Go ahead, Gordon.
Oh, thank you. I think from our family's perspective, and I think any small woodland owner's perspective, one of the things that we fear greatly is increased regulatory pressure on our land. Just a few years back, we figured that about 4 to 5% of our forest land was restricted from growing and harvesting timber. And that seems like quite a contribution. And after the private forest, there's another 4%. So now we're reaching nearly 10% that is set aside for various restrictions that allow us to manage that land. And it's really not a pleasant picture looking into the future for a family that would like to maintain that ownership and keep it as a working forest. We recognize that our provides a lot of special things for Oregon, and actually it's one of the reasons why Western Oregon is so special, is because of people that are the private forest owners that take care and tend to that land. Along with that, we're partners with people that are in the mill business and people that are industrial forest owners. And forest policies that harm them harm us as well. We have to have good markets for our logs and the ability to be able to sell those logs within a distance that it is possible to profit. We've seen in Oregon, I think, 8 mill closures this year, and a good share of that, not completely, but a good share of that is because of timber supply that is not adequate for the industry that's available. Just to say one other thing, increase regulatory pressure that will take away options for us to manage invasives. Restrictions on chemicals can be very damaging to us. It's one of the things that we do very carefully by the label and by all best practices. We use those chemicals responsibly, but we need those if we're going to continue to successfully grow trees in Western Oregon. With that, I think I've probably taken up more than my time, so I'll pass the mic.
I pick back on Gordon's. I have the same concerns that Gordon does. But I think going further back, I really have the public perception of foresters and forestry. You know, been in this sector for a long time, and it used to be that foresters were respectful of the community. You know, and if you said, "I'm a forester, I'm a husband's a forester," people would say, "Oh, how wonderful, you're taking care of the environment." But now people look at me askance. And they say, "Oh, you're one of those people that lives the forest." Or if they don't say that, that's the implication. And so I really do worry about that perception, because perception that drives the kind of over the things that are going on in the garden. So I worry about other things too. I worry about climate change. I worry about the invasive species. But if people started respecting the work we do, we could do a lot better.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm going to move us on to the second question, and would also encourage our landowners online to, I don't know if you can use the hand feature or not, but maybe what I'll do is call on Fred to take the lead on this second question, and I'll bring it back to the landowners in the room to answer it as well. Fred, what affects your bottom line? And I know there's a lot that probably affect your bottom lines. Think about this in the context of something that might relate to the Fish and Wildlife Commission or to the natural resource agencies that are in the room.
Well, thank you. You know, our family has had the benefit of 7 generations now that have been able to work on the resource land in Southwest Oregon. We're very proud of our stewardship, take it very seriously, and have been a big supporter in the last 20 years of the working lands concept. And we still believe in that, that there's benefit for all the stakeholders. Certainly nobody's going to get 100%, but if we could just get to where we could work with 90% for all the stakeholders, then we're all winners. The low-hanging fruit has been picked, and now we're getting into more difficult situations where we're dealing with multiple landowners and more complex situations in that. We're getting away, frankly, we're getting to the point where the working lands concept isn't working, and that is affecting our bottom line. The previous speakers that talked about the forest aspect of it, we're experiencing that. I'm not going to spend any time on that. I'd like to talk more about the coastal ag issues we're having with just being able to get a project permitted, and the complexity of that. It's total gridlock, and we're just not able to get anything done. The Winter Lake project, which the ODFW and the commission supported very healthily. We've got a very, close to $10 million investment there with a lot of other people's money, and we can't take advantage of it because we can't get the interior, the permitting to manage our infrastructure inside, so that we can take advantage of it. And we've been working on that now for 5 years. There's all of this affects our bottom line in that we can't operate our grazing and timber operation to be able to take advantage of the progress we're making. Additionally, there's the way these programs are set up, there's no incentive for the landowner to participate because of the difficulty. And another issue that goes along that way is that at any level, local, state, or federal, there's no regulatory presence. There's a lot of work being done in the dark of the night and off the grid, if you will. And that makes every restoration project less effective, because if a project is going to be 100% improvement, the stuff that isn't in compliance takes away from that, and that's another issue. Additionally, those folks that are doing it that way don't have any support for moving forward and trying to do it within the rules and regulations. So I probably said enough for a moment.
Appreciate that. We'll bring it back into the room. Go ahead, Nathan.
So when I looked at this question first, the first thing for yield, which is functional weather and rain, labor one for us. Was already been mentioned some of the regulations regarding labor. The cost of labor going up. Our family farm supports 10 to 12, 15-ish family wages, year-round healthcare, etc. That really doesn't impact wildlife. Input costs are high, crop protection stuff, fertilizers, and the biggest one that kind of reconnects to this is scale. And I think that goes to what we're talking about, fragmented land. And as you have, farmers have to be, commodity growers have to be low cost producers. We always have to drive for efficiency. And if you look at a chart of 500 versus the wheat price over the last 100 years, they're like this. Wheat price is down here, so we have to be efficient. And scale in the context is very important. So as you have urban growth and things encroaching on our properties, that makes it hard to have the connectivity you're talking about, and it also makes it harder for us to have a good bottom line. The other point that kind of was brought up about some of the regulations on chemistry and different things. There's an interesting intersection between conservation practices and farming and climate, carbon and sequestration, things like that. And a lot of those are driving towards more chemical use because we can't do as much. So I think it's an important thing for the state regulators to understand. We need those tools to help do what we can on climate. And we're losing those tools. We're just not getting them through the process. So those are my things.
Chris?
Words, Oregon Forest Industries Council. What affects the bottom line as it relates to fish, wildlife, and habitat that we should consider? Well, everything. I mean, I agree with Gordon and Will's answer, and have more to say about what worries me most about the future. Because I spend a lot of time doing that. But to focus on this particular question, Oregon is already the state in the nation for sustainable forestry. Right? Number one producer of softwood lumber, number one producer of softwood plywood. More acres, private acres, once the habitat conservation plan is approved by federal services, more private acres than any other state in operating under a habitat conservation. I'm concerned that it will be enough, which speaks to the politics of the state, which that question one just kind of keeps pulling me back, but I'll try to stay focused. With private forest accord, our members in, large industrial landowners were very much at the table, not the landowners were at the table in the negotiation of that. But it was a collaboration with environmental groups coming together to say, what can we agree on and move forward and get put into law and written into a habitat conservation plan. And it's, while we can sit around rooms like this, and it's very theoretical, I mean, on the ground, it's real stuff. It's acres out of production. It's incredible amounts of investment in infrastructure, whether it's moving or upgrading, crossing ditches, moving roads. We move a road from a river bottom to a ridge top. There's a lot of costs that are involved, and then a lot of the prescriptions really increase the cost of at the time of actual harvest, and the complexity of harvest operations, and therefore the cost of harvest operations. And in a commodity market, costs do matter. I know natural resource friends from other sectors understand that, but a lot of folks that don't work in natural resources don't understand how we are essentially price takers, and we either meet the market price or not. And particularly on some of our most stressed landscapes, Southern Oregon, Eastern Oregon, where it's dry, the land is already less productive. Because it's less productive, we have mills that can be customers for wildfire mitigation treatments. It really impacts the ability to treat those landscapes. And in this new wildfire regime, we have a tremendous need for fuels mitigation treatments. And when you lose
mills like we lost in Metal Lumber. In John Day, it really improved the ability to apply fuels treatments in that part of the state because there's no customer for the logs.
Thank you. And I mean, some of this stuff about markets and how you operate, I mean, that's really what we're hoping to hear a little bit about. Anything, I'll take one more response to this in the room, and then I'm going to go to question 3. I'm going to turn to you, Jim, to get us started on question 3 online. So get ready for that.
Kind of following up on Chris's comments on the forestry, what happened with a lot of bills, and you go to this rock bottom where, oh man, we need to keep the forest clean, and you might end up with that with agriculture in general, non-forestry, where the first thing you notice when you stop farming is all noxious and non-native species show up. So who's gonna work on those? You know, I think that's an important concept. Who's gonna manage that land?
Right. Good. Go ahead, Scott. And then we'll go to number 3.
All right. I think I'm gonna pivot off of the last 2 comments there and take this in a little bit of a different direction relative to what we're dealing with down in the climate. And I say this can be a little offensive to some folks. Single species management is very much affecting everybody's bottom line, period. And there's a lot of things that go into that. In our case, we've got a federal agency that is managing listed salmon downstream of us. Upstream, we have another federal agency managing suckers. We're stuck in the middle. It very much affects our bottom line. From a competitive perspective, from a politics perspective, from a litigation perspective. And we're trying to figure out how to navigate that. I'm up here, a grant paid employee for 12 landowners managing 27,000 acres. I pay no matter what. If they don't get water, they don't get paid. We right adjacent to a national wildlife refuge in the heart of the Pacific Flatway and 27,000 acres that used to be dubbed the only bald eagle feeding ground, major bald eagle feeding ground in the lower 48. We don't have that anymore. I've heard stories of where the bald eagles block the sky in the morning, and I mean, I might get to see 10 bald eagles a day anymore, and that's when they're in town, so to speak. So I know you can use your imagination. I can sit here and I can talk for the next 2 hours about what's really impacting our bottom line specifically. But that's really it, is when we're managing for a single species, it's impacting other species, including our agriculture, including refuges that both went dry last year. It's trickling all the way down to our sidewalks downtown.
That. Thank you for that. I'm going to move us on to question number 3, just in the interest of time. We're curious, all of you have been involved on some level in projects that host fish and wildlife. I mean, you already do host fish and wildlife on your working lands, and you've been involved in conservation programs, if not with us, with other partners around this room or around the state. And we're like, why do you do it? I'm curious, what is the incentive to you for doing these kinds of projects? And to make sure we're hitting our folks online and making sure you're part of the conversation, Jim, I'm going to start with you, and we are right at 2:40, so we'll just keep that in mind with your response here. But we'd love, you were talking about a video that you wished you could have shared. Sorry, we didn't make tech work on that, but maybe you could just speak to this question a little bit. Why do you do it? Why have you worked on projects on your land?
The right thing to do.
Well, that was extremely brief.
I mean, it's almost a no-brainer. You got. I mean, I approach everything that we have more in common than we have apart. And back to the previous questions. or, everybody, I agreed with everything they said, but what it boils down to is we have a lack of coordination or understanding between varying interests. But, and it, whether it be wildlife, environmental, production, some people call it the extraction industries, but we boil it all down, working together is the right thing to do. And groups like this, thank you for pulling it together. I am so sorry I'm not there in person. And I've gotten a lot of grant money from ODFW programs, from Mule Deer Initiative to the Working Lands matching dollars for mitigation of loss of winter range elsewhere, but it's still, I don't know why we wouldn't do it. Improving habitat can improve my carrying capacity for my livestock, but it all goes hand in glove. I mean, I'm sorry, it's a simple question, but to me, it's a no-brainer. Open the floor to anybody else.
Thank you. I really appreciate that answer. And I know everyone would really like to respond to this, but I would love to just want to make sure I'm looking at you, trying to look at you back there and wonder if you want to maybe get the last word in here on this third question or any of the above as a at the table as well.
Were you talking to me? I'm not
sorry.
here.
No, I was talking to Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. I know it's hard to hear. Thanks for being patient. We're still working on it.
Yeah, so, I mean, why do we want to host Fish and Wildlife on our land? It's because we love our land. It's incredible and it's important. It's important for all Oregonians, not just us. So I think Jim absolutely nailed it. And I also think that it's interesting. I've been curious lately, thinking a lot about how we support working lands in the state. And I think it's neat Bruce Taylor brought up the Trout Creek Ranch project, which is including grazing. But I think we need to start looking at these working landscapes and bringing kind of resources to those landscapes that we bring to all the important land in Oregon, whether it's in a refuge or not, because the statistics you gave, Sarah, at the start are pretty sobering. If we do not take care of working land in Oregon, we are not taking care of fish and wildlife. And I think the work that John O'Keefe has done, which is incredible around the way we're approaching sage grouse in Oregon, is a pretty special for how to do this, because we are now putting hundreds of thousands of dollars on working lands that benefit not just sage grouse, but all of the desert species that are important. And we're doing it in a way that created a model of cooperation instead of people being scared. And the only thing that I think is not going well with that is so many of those contracts are locked up in relationships between the private landowners and NRCS. The public at large has absolutely no idea the deep level of conservation that is actually going on the ground right now. So if we put models like that in place across other working land sectors, I don't know much about the private forest accord directly. I don't know how much of a pipeline that is to support landowners, because if they can't pay their bills, they can't, you can't move out of that, right? So if these lands matter, let's invest in them in smart ways. I think John should get the last word. I know one break, but John should get the last word on that, the sage grouse plans as a model.
Well, the question, what value does hosting fish and wildlife on your working lands bring to you? When I got out of college in 1980, I went back to started ranching, and that was all I ever wanted to do. And I was watching my ranch disappear before my eyes. I could see photos from when I was a kid. In just 20 years, juniper were taking it over and we were losing the understory and the soil. And, you know, I tried, it was a tough time in the cattle industry. I might clear a little bit around the water hole or a cattle trail with a chainsaw, but you could not take on landscape work out of operating budgets. The sage-grouse issue came along, society decided they valued the species. I got my ranch back. That juniper is gone now. I was losing sleep at night, wondering what I was going to do about that. Then the sage-grouse issue came along, and I got my ranch back. Society decided they were going to jump in, and it was a win-win. And now we're kind of at the same place now with the invasive gases and wildfire, and we've got solutions, but I think they're going to be a little tougher than just cranking up sites. And we can talk about that more later. Thank you.
Can't take on landscape work on operating budgets. That was like mic drop for me there. Appreciate that perspective. Thank you all for sharing. 242, we'll take a tiny little bit here. We're going to come back at 250.
One quick note comment. Joy is taking notes that we'll be sharing back for all of you afterwards. But also during our break, if you want to write anything that you'd like to add to this conversation, there's some hands raised over here. That's why we have posted in front of you. There's pens at the back if you don't have them. Please feel free to add to post it these physical notes as well with your thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, you're here to keep me in line. All right, 50. Thanks.